My name is Mary Spirito. I'm the founding director of Proto Cinema, which realizes site-aware exhibitions in the world. I think that after working for 12 years as director of 303 Gallery and then starting Proto Cinema, which is a hybrid experimental model based mostly on the American nonprofit model, but doing it in Turkey mostly, where there is no culture of nonprofit philanthropy. It's slowly been growing over the past 10 years, but it's a completely different thing. So it's been a lot of trial by fire and just trying out different things. I started as an artist. I went to art school, and when I was in art school, I started making exhibitions, and it became really, like, for me, more exciting than making art. Then I wanted to make more exhibitions, so I started working in galleries. I worked in galleries for like 20 years. And then at a certain juncture, I felt that I wanted to take the relationships, the resources, and experience I had and expand on that. And so Proto Cinema is the result of that expansion, to be able to work in a way that's it's like a journey of discovery. Like when an artist has to make an artwork to find out what the artwork is about, I'm making Proto Cinema as a way to figure out like what kind of new support structures can exist for artists, what new ways can audiences approach artwork, what new ways are there to support art outside of the existing models. Like it's about the journey of discovery, much like making an artwork. Proto Cinema is very much inspired by predecessors such as Art Angel in London, Creative Time in New York, and organizations that have been around a long time, which commission artists to make new artworks that are responding to specific contexts and sites. So that's why I say that the organization makes site-aware exhibitions and or context-specific exhibitions. I tend to work with artists that I've known for a long time, so there's a relationship already in place. And for example, like I might show an established artist like Adrian Paci right now in Istanbul, or an emerging artist, like we just did a show with Laura Ogle, an emerging artist from Istanbul, in Paris. So there's a range of different levels that it's working on. In the United States, nonprofit is a very specific tax status where it's a business, but a business that has a mission, and you're only legally allowed to raise money in a way that stays within the mission. If you do anything off mission, like I can't sell cars or do something that's not described in my mission as an art organization, and I can't take a profit, which technically means that like if Proto Cinema is doing very well, I can't then go and buy myself a house. All the money that is raised through my business has to go back into my business. Well, I think because it has a feeling of a lack of transparency, but one thing is, to be sure, the nonprofit model that we've been talking about today is something that's very specific to the United States and evolved in a specific time. And Europe is starting to get this practice, even though it's evolving here. And in other parts of the world, it doesn't exist. And maybe when people ask, what is nonprofit, how do you get money if you're, the word nonprofit does not sound like really financially successful idea, because it's like in your mind it says no to profit. And then it's not always very readily available. Like we understand that a gallery sells art, a museum gets public money. But the nonprofit looks like it's not transparent, when in fact it is, but maybe it's not transferring across cultures. And one thing I've been thinking about a lot is the ethics of exporting philanthropy. Like I listened for 10 years to people in Turkey say collectors or patrons should do this and they should do that, but they're not doing it because it's not in their culture. And also in other parts of the Middle East or India or China or Africa, like different parts of the world, their culture of giving is a very intimate, personal thing, and the way that we give in our families and our society is very specific, and you can't go somewhere else and tell them that they should do something that's part of another culture unless they want to. You can't make someone do something they don't want to do. So I think that there's, how things get exported and imported and how they get interpreted and translated in these different parts of the world is also part of this thing that we're experiencing. And at the same time, there's a capitalization, privatization of everything. So there's a lot of shifting happening right now, and I think that we're all figuring it out at the same time. My feeling is that philanthropy is giving for the civic duty and the sake of giving, not wanting anything concrete back. But maybe other people have different feelings about that. Well, as far as I understand being independent, it's about not being with a known entity, whether it's a gallery or a museum or somewhere that's funding you, like you get a salary, you do your job. It's like an artist is independent. You know, you do your thing and you work really hard and you get income from multiple sources, and you also can control it in a way where if you want to work a lot, you can say yes to everything. If you want to slow down a little, you can, you know, say no to some things and create some space more for like research or thinking. But it's basically like a freelance. There's several different ways. One way is I have board members that pay to sit on the board, and another way is people just make donations. I have done like crowdfunding. In Europe, there's an organization called Kiss Kiss Bank Bank, and we raise money for our emerging curator series, where people gave 25, 50 euro, 100 euro, or you know, or more or less. And we do year-end asks, where we ask people to, you know, at the end of the year, give something, because they get a tax write-off if they're in the United States. So they just make a contribution and they get a tax write-off. Another way is we do project patronage, where a patron is invited to give money towards a project, and then they may or may not get an artwork or a smaller artwork in exchange. And then what else? Yeah, like placing artworks in collections, which is rare, but you know, we're trying to do that in a very sort of transparent way, where the artist is involved. The artist gets 50%, the gallery gets a percentage, and the balance is fundraising for Proto Cinema. So it's very transparent, and it's, you know, again, it's one of these hybrid model things where we're experimenting with different ways, and there's lots of organizations doing experiments like this right now. So we're trying out different things. And actually, something else that came up when you were talking about like the ways that make Proto Cinema happen, in addition to actually getting cash from different sources, something that it's evolved pretty organically is collaborating with other institutions that are, you know, like-minded. Art Space in Sydney, we're doing a collaboration with 2 different artists. Tbilisi, there's a new Kunsthalle coming up, Kunsthalle Tbilisi. We're doing a collaboration with them. So like I find these, we did a really beautiful thing with Broad Art Museum in Michigan State University when Michael Rush was there. So these collaborations, it's more in-kind support, or sometimes it's actual support, but that actually helps be able to make projects happen and open up our audience too. We get to show the artwork to more people. Yeah, right now I have board members in different parts of the world. One is living in Zurich, 2 are living in New York, and 1 lives in Palm Springs. And the way it came about was like I'm making exhibitions in, you know, the United States and Europe and Turkey. So the people that are supporting it are people that I know very well and I've known for a long time. And like the person living in Zurich also used to live in Turkey. So there's movement, and it represents the diversity of the organization itself. Proto Cinema's advisory committee is made up more of curators instead of patrons, and it's people that I trust and I've worked for a long time, and I ask them, literally I ask them for advice. I call them up and say, hey, this situation happened, what do you think I should do? Or I'm like, right now I'm talking to my advisory committee to say, like, we're at this juncture, you know, we're trying to experiment with these ideas, what do you think? And get their input. It's a support structure. And there are also people that are based all over the world. When I started Proto Cinema, I'd already been working for 20 years in that field. So when I invited Mario Garcia Torres and Dan Graham to do exhibitions, I already knew them for a long time. And so it wasn't like I was just coming from the blue, like, I'm this person you never met, and I have an organization you never heard of, do you want to do something? There was a lot of like warmth and confidence in the relationship. So basically it's about building these relationships. And yeah, I do have to say, like, for inspiration in the beginning, Art Angel is a huge inspiration. And then I had a board that was made up mostly of friends in the beginning who have all now moved to advisory capacity. But ICI, Kate Fowle and Renaud Proch, it helped enormously. And November Painter, who was then at SALT in Istanbul. And it was, you know, Mike Nelson, like people who were in my vicinity, but who were professionals, highly respected, but who were enormously helpful. Yeah. Happy to give a shout out. Well, I think on one side, that's just like a personal prison that we all have in different ways put in place by society or family, or and we have to just do whatever we want in life. And I mean, Buddhism, get beyond your, personal beliefs. If you knew you were going to die soon, like, what would you do? And do that thing today. But the other thing is, don't be so fooled that if you get outside the art market and you want to deal with more content, that you're not going to have to deal also with market things. And I'll tell you this, that some of the best people at market things you think are the dealers, but also the curators, the professional curators are extremely good at making money appear and pursuing the places where to get funding. And you're still in the market, you're still dealing with it, you may be dealing with a different part of it, and you still have to like make budgets for the production of the artist's work, and there's money's never going to go away from you. You're never going to be a monk and live in a beautiful library and only think about ideas and not think about money. Money's still going to be there. It's just how you deal with it that might shift. But in a way, you still kind of have to sell. Like me going and meeting with someone saying, hey, can you give Proto Cinema some money to do this project, is a different kind of selling than selling like, hey, do you want to buy this artwork by this artist in my booth, for example. It's transferable skills. There is a feeling of civic responsibility and that you're helping, but also you need to make the money to do at the end of the day, it's still a business. So there is like a feeling that there's an idealistic side to it, but it's still also, even if it's a mission-driven art organization or a foundation or a gallery or a museum, it's still business. The basic structure for Proto Cinema is that whenever we make an exhibition in a city, even if it's cities I know very well, like Istanbul and New York, or other cities that I don't know as well, for that project, I build a specific team of people I need who will be the right person to install the exhibition, help find a space, maybe the fabrication, production, communication, PR and stuff like this. So I build Ocean's 11, the team, and then we work on the show together, and then when the exhibition's over, we all go our own ways. And then when it's time to do another show, I build another team. Sometimes, from time to time, some of these people repeat and are on teams, sometimes not. And it really depends on what the artwork requires. It's always based on whatever the artist is doing, the best way to support the artist. I don't do that. So what I do is if I produce an artwork by an artist and there is an institution that wants to acquire it and the gallery feels comfortable and the artist feels comfortable, then it can be placed in the collection, and then a private or public collection, and then the artist gets 50%, the gallery gets a percentage, and the balance is fundraising for Proto Cinema. I never ask for artists to give artwork out 100%. So maybe that's why they like me. I think it's important to remember that Art Basel was started by dealers to support a platform for them to support artists. So if you keep that in mind, of course now it's been so many years and it's become the best art fair in the world, that the bottom line and the main core mission is to create a platform for dealers to support artists, and that even if you're a nonprofit and you go to an art fair, for me to see the highest quality artwork and see people from around the world that could potentially be supportive of my organization or organizations of my colleagues and stuff, it's about this meeting place, and it's how we all can cross-pollinate and share knowledge and information and resources. It's basically one of the ways to make money. But I think the talks program is not as high profile as being on a selection committee, so I don't get subjected to that. But it's great for me to go to the fair and have a role and be part of something bigger that is super interesting and dynamic and always changing. Of course it's helpful and nice. There's only 2 moderators that are consistent. In Miami, we do 19 or 20 talks. In Basel, we do 24, 25 talks. And only those 2 that you mentioned, Andras Santos and Hans-Ulrich Oberst, are consistent because they're in the Art Basel team, and we have long relationships with them, and they do regular talks. Andras about museums and institutions, and Hans Ulrich does different series with artists. All the other talks, we're always rotating out different moderators and keeping it fresh and new, and trying to get many different voices, experienced voices, new voices, different perspectives. Well, I think to address that, on one level, there's different layers of the art field, and if you're going to fly in private jets and go to a place for one day and fly somewhere else, that's one layer. And of course, multiple very deep down, there's the people that work in the field, more like the art waitresses, let's say. And like when I was starting out at a gallery and I was just going to the art fairs, I'm there for the installation the entire week, working, and so I'm not flying around and going to all these things, but it is a level of participation that does take resources and energy and time, and then the other thing is that different people in the art field have different levels of why they do it. They want the prestige, or they want the knowledge, or they want the relationships, and a lot of it's very passion driven. And this is a real thing. Being passion driven is not fake, it's real. That if you go and you stay at a friend's house and fly on an overnight flight, and you go and you're not making lots of money, but you do it because you love it and it's super engaging and it inspires you, that this has value. And this is why a lot of us do it. It's very real. It's not about the market or making money. It's about engaging in something that you think is going to actually make a change, and participating in dialogue that gets you so excited and gives you a reason to go on. So.